Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we continue to discover what makes a bestseller and inspire you to start, finish and publish your book. I'm Mark Stay.
And I'm Mark DeVoe. And before we dive in, I'd like to thank our amazing patrons that support this podcast. And if you would like to be one of those patrons, pop over to bestsellerexperiment.com/support for loads of extra goodies. And we'd also like to thank all of our Bestseller Academy members, or our academates, who are part of an amazing writing academy, all pursuing their dreams to become best-selling writers, or it really just finished that book that they've been working on or wanted to work on for many months or years. So if you would like to join them, there are about 4 days left to start in our July intake. So if you pop over to academy.bestsellerexperiment.com before the end of June, you can put in your application.
Oh,
Mr.
Get
Stay,
in there.
Yeah, you've been busy in the academy, hasn't you? Writing, surgeries every week.
Yeah.
Those have been quite interesting, haven't they? There's been some really interesting things that have come up in the writer's surgery.
Great discussions. It's kind of open, free for all kind of thing. Discuss whatever you want. And there's something new every week and everyone comes away a little wiser. And also hang around to the end of the show today, folks. We got some very, very good news from an Academy member. So, you know, this is where it all starts paying off. It's where it all starts paying off, people.
I know, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's almost 2 years since the Academy's been running now, and it's the things that are happening. The things that are happening. 6-book deal last week from one of our very first Academy members. Absolutely brilliant stuff. But talking of good news, Mark, something showed up in your world this week, hasn't it?
My book arrived. There it is. The Ghost of Ivy Barn. Lovely, beautiful paperback book. Smells lovely. Always sniff your books. Yep, always sniff the books. Yeah. Now, one thing, okay, so we got a bit of spot UV, bit of spot lamination on there, but no embossing this time. So the first two were embossed. Now, I know, but this is the thing. You'll, if you've been listening to the podcast, you'll know that I've been banging on about books are going to get more expensive and publishers are going to be cutting costs. So embossing costs money. Also, I've ordered more copies of The Crowfolk because I'm doing all sorts of events over the summer. That's gone up £1. You know, so books.
Inflation everywhere.
I said this was going to happen. Yeah, books are going to get more expensive. You're going to see fewer specials on books, fewer. You know, so I've still got a bit of spot UV, which is lovely.
The spot lamination, though, it is. I mean, embossing's lovely, very tactile and lovely, but spot UV, there's something really magical. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, go to the YouTube recording of this podcast. And you'll see Mark holding this book, and you can see, if you just turn it, you can see that spot UV, it's that reflective kind of shiny thing that they do on the letters sometimes, or on the author's name, or parts of the actual book. And it looks absolutely brilliant. So hopefully that will remain for book 17 or whatever it is that's coming up. I mean, I tell you what though, Mark, seeing the glee and joy on your face holding that book for the first time, it never gets boring, does it? It's right. Look at that. You got the German copy there as well. Let's have a look at the German copy.
Well, this is Babes in the Wood.
Oh,
yeah. Well, it's shorter. This is a B format. That's an A format. So slightly different formats. They're different sizes. So yeah, it's slightly chunkier. But yeah, there's a bit of spot lamb on that as well, spot UV, and that's Nachtsalber, night magic.
How
so yeah, that's the second book, Babes in the Wood. Yeah,
German. Hang on a minute. Let's rewind. I mean, doing this podcast 5 months. You're holding a German version of a book that you wrote. How cool is that? I mean, not many people get international, like, foreign rights sales of their book. That must feel great.
Yeah, it's been good. And also, my Turkish publisher has started sort of banging the drum. I think they're going with Harry's original covers for The Crowfolk and that. So I've got a Turkish deal coming soon as well. So that's great.
Turkish delight, mate.
Turkish delight. I will be celebrating with Turkish. I know some people don't like it. I love a bit of Turkish delight.
Do you know what I got for Father's Day, Mark? Do you know what I got for Father's Day?
Go on.
A bar. You ready for this? Of Fry's Turkish delight, imported from England.
Full of Eastern promise.
Full of Eastern promise. One of those. You know what the ultimate meal would be? The ultimate meal would be one of those wedged between two hobnobs. It'd be like the posh person's s'more, right?
Yeah.
Fry's Turkish Delight.
Yeah.
And do you know what, though?
Now you're talking. Yeah.
The thing about Fry's Turkish Delight is that was the thing. What was really lovely about that gift from my daughter is that was the bar of chocolate I I gave my dad every year for Father's Day as well. So I thought, well, carry the tradition, right? Pass on the chalice. Nice. So yeah, fantastic.
Very sweet.
Absolutely.
Very sweet. Yeah.
So and absolutely exciting, fun news on book launch, but some really sad news as well this week, Mark.
Yeah, well, my old boss, a fellow by the name of Dallas Manderson, who was the sales director at Orion when I joined in 2003, passed away. And Dallas had Parkinson's. He's had it since his 40s, and he had it when I joined. And, you know, it never became a problem, but we all knew about it. You know, if you went into his office, Dallas would basically overheat because of it. And if you went into his office, it was like an ice box. It was like something, you know, you'd have to put on a parka before he went in there. And he had like a hairdryer which would run on cold, which he'd use to sort of, you know, cool himself down. But Dallas was a one-off. He was there. I don't know where to start with him. There was the singing. So you come in the office in the morning, he'd be the first person in, and he'd be singing from some 80s greatest hits CD that he had in his car. So, and Dallas was frightfully posh. I think he went to Eton, you know, he always wore immaculate suits with the incredible coloured lining in the jacket, but he was so inclusive. He was so... What I've seen on all the Facebook groups when we were talking about Dallas, when we heard that he passed away, so many people saying he gave me my first job in publishing. He gave me an opportunity. He kind of, you know, and that's what he did for me. He gave me a chance. You know, I didn't have the experience for that job, but he took a chance on me, and he always encouraged me, not just in, you know, my sales life, in my writing. He was always saying, yes, you know, keep writing, keep at it. He was the one who gave me some time off when Robot Overlords was in production. You know, he was always incredibly encouraging. So, you know, he was a brilliant negotiator. I loved sitting in Amazon negotiations with Dallas because they never knew what to make of him. You know, very often negotiations, everyone's read the same How to Negotiate Sales books. Dallas was of a different school altogether. He was, you know, he was such a gentleman. He always defended the sales team. And whenever we were excited about a book, we'd get Thunderbirds Are Go emails, you know. So it was Dallas would say, okay, we've got a new book. We're really excited about it. Thunderbirds Are Go. And we'd all get behind that. And then, you know, he had his own language. He didn't refer to the London Underground. He called it the Tubular Railway. And like I said, yeah, he really did. Love it. And like I said, his speeches at the sales conferences were works of art, and he'd be singing, and the songs were always hugely inappropriate. So something like "Move Closer" or "Steamy Windows" as well. So we loved him. We loved him to bits. He was one of those people you would do anything for them, but you also knew that he would do anything for you. You know, he was a staunch defender of the sales department. He stuck up for us. He negotiated our pensions, you know, and also our redundancy packages. So thanks for that, Dallas. Thank you very much. Wow. You know? So Dallas Manderson, an absolute one-off, an old school gentleman of which, you know, just doesn't really exist in publishing anymore. And I think he was only 66, which is no bloody age. And he made an incredible impact, not only on my career, but on my life and the way I carry myself. I learned a lot from him about kindness and politeness in the face of, in the face of big corporations. And he was we all loved him to bits. And, rest in peace, Dallas.
Oh, what an incredible tribute, Mark. And what an amazing legacy. What an amazing legacy to hear. And this is a thing that you just don't know throughout your life, the knock-on effects of how one thing or many things that you do for someone or help someone with, how that completely changes their life. And you're living proof of that. That's absolutely brilliant. Well, and to everyone out there that knew Dallas, you know, our condolences are with you as well on this difficult week that it's been. Gosh, how do we follow that, Mark? I think we have to follow that with, nothing other than an incredible celebration of publishing, which is what happened the day that you interviewed our special guest this week. Tell us about Lizzy Barber.
Lizzy Barber is such a fun interview. And Lizzy Barber, her debut novel, My Name is Anna, won the Daily Mail First Novel Competition. She works in the food industry. She's head of brand and marketing at Hush, which is a group of restaurants, and that comes in handy for her. But she's got a new novel called Out of Her Depth. And when I interviewed her, not only was it her publication day, but she also had a big announcement. And I think I got her on exactly the right day. She's a ton of fun. So we discuss, amongst many other things, writing about food, writing unreliable narrators, ambition, and keeping big announcements a secret.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive in and listen to this incredible interview with Mark chatting with the absolutely lovely Lizzy Barber.
Lizzy Barber, welcome to the bestseller experiment. Now, normally I say, how are you today? But A, this is publication day, so a huge congratulations on that. And B, minutes ago on Twitter was ablaze with announcements of who are going to be the new Richard and Judy picks for the summer. And your new novel, Out of Her Depth, was announced as one of those. So you must be giddy. How are you today?
I'm completely all over the place. I'm like, whatever is the opposite of cool, calm and collected. I'm the opposite. It's, I also have you can probably hear it in my voice. I've got a really bad cold. I've just come back from holiday, so I am absolutely jet lagged up to the hilt. And then this is all kind of, I don't know. And then I work Monday to Wednesday. So I went straight back in. I got back on Sunday, went straight back into work, haven't stopped. And now suddenly publication day is here and the Richard and Judy announcement was made at the same time. So I've just been in complete madness. It's mad.
So you're feeling completely mad, giddy, jet-lagged. Are you sure you want to go ahead with the interview?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Chuck it all in.
Okay. Right, strap in, everyone. Okay, well, look, Out of Her Depth. Today is publication day. Huge congrats. Tell us about this. This is your second novel. Tell us about Rachel and her journey in this novel.
So Rachel is a kind of typical London girl who gets this amazing opportunity to work in this luxury pensione, which is a kind of glorified 5-star bed and breakfast up in the hills of Florence, run by this kind of mad contessa called Sylvia. And when she's there, she meets this incredibly glamorous girl working alongside her called Diana, very sophisticated, very sort of private boarding school girl. And down the road from them, there is another expat British guy called Sebastian, who Rachel kind of falls head over heels with. And she kind of falls into this group of these kind of privileged 18-year-olds that she's never kind of been anywhere near their lives before. And she is completely bowled over with it and is having the time of her life until something goes wrong, because it's a thriller, and her life kind of changes forever. And it's set in past and present. And we know in present day that Sebastian has just been released from prison for 20 years.
Excellent stuff. And this idea of, because I come from a working class background, and this idea of because I went from a housing estate in North London to leafy Leatherhead in Surrey, and this thing of coming from, you know, a rough old background and suddenly mingling with people who've got loads of cash and go on holidays all the time, and I'm looking forward to dipping into this because this feels really, really relatable. I think a lot of people will relate to this. So.
Well, I mean, she's very much the underdog, and I think she's kind of a voyeur, and I've always been interested in that sort of character. One of the big influences was Talented Mr. Ripley, and I also absolutely love Great Gatsby, and I love that idea of somebody who's kind of on the peripheries of this world so that they are in it, but they can kind of take a step back from it and can comment on it. And I think that's where Rachel fits in. Only for her, it's this two sides of kind of envy and jealousy and desire kind of coming in together and clashing, and she kind of her world is completely changed and she doesn't really know what to do with herself.
Fantastic stuff. The other thing about this book is the food. The food. Yeah. I mean, we're in Tuscany, it's Italy, it's, amazing, astonishing food, but very difficult to write about. It's something that's really, really tough because it's it's such a personal thing and it's such a difficult thing to convey on the page. What did you learn in trying to sort of write about food to get the reader kind of salivating?
So I have a bit of a head start on two fronts. The first is that I actually work in the food industry. So my brother has a restaurant group that I've worked with him for 11 years now. Don't know how that happened. So I'm obviously very in touch with food on a day-to-day basis. My husband is also a food writer. So although I can't stand the word foodie, that is how we've ended up being. So we do spend a lot of time eating and discussing food. He is incredibly eloquent when he writes about food. He has a very kind of keen eye for detail of food. So I suppose I've got a kind of, I didn't crib off him, but I've definitely kind of learned a language of food. But I also think, although you say it's very personal, I also think that there is something also universal about food. It's very sensory, particularly Italian food. One of the scenes that's kind of most evocative of food in the book is pesto, and for me it kind of says so much about Italy. It's got the kind of the colors and the flavors and the smell of basil and garlic and parmesan. So I think it's very easy to kind of bring across more about Italy by describing something as simple as pesto. So it works as a connection for the reader as well, and that's what I've really enjoyed when I've gone into the food in the book.
I'm getting hungry now. You also mentioned that, this is a book with an unreliable narrator, which is always, and you mentioned the talented Mr. Ripley there as well. Yeah. It's always fun to play with one of those. What were your, when you started out, did you know they were going to be unreliable? Was there a point where you thought, I can't trust this person? Or was it something that you planned out ahead?
Funny enough, my mother-in-law said something really interesting to me when she finished reading the book, where she said Rachel's unreliable on all fronts. So she's not just unreliable as a narrator. You actually literally can't rely on her as a friend, which is something that I hadn't even thought about. She gives away secrets. She doesn't turn up to places that she's supposed to be. She forgets it's her friend's birthday party. She doesn't turn up on time. She's told to keep stuff secret. She tells it. So I think that unreliability kind of has become a characteristic of hers. She was fun to write because I think, a couple of people have kind of who've received ARC copies have said, I didn't like any of the characters. And I think it's really interesting to me having an unreliable narrator who's unlikable, because it kind of begs the question as to, do narrators have to be likable? Do characters have to be likable? I mean, I think it's interesting for me. It can be off-putting for some readers, but I think that in writing Rachel, I mean, sometimes, God, I want to just shake her. I mean, she's really irritating and she's besotted with these characters, and she doesn't let things go for 20 years. And you just think, come on, get over yourself. But in a way, I think that it's interesting to explore that. So I wouldn't kind of make her a nice person, because then she becomes just a kind of Mary Jane kind of stock figure. I think that all of my characters are flawed, and that includes her. Yes,
it's often the terrible note that you might get sometimes from editors or whatever saying, can you make this person more likable? What they're actually saying is make them more interesting. I think with, stories are littered with really despicable people that we can't terrorize off the page because they're doing such amazing things. So I mean, think
of Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. I mean, God, you don't like him, but you love to read about him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally agree. Let's talk about where it all started, which I understand for you, Lizzy, it started writing a competition for Disney when you were 10. Tell us about that.
Right. I mean, so I was one of those people who, I mean, I was the classic, and I know it's such an author cliche, but I was a classic bookworm. My mum used to take me to, we lived in North London as well, actually. My mum used to take me to the kind of Muswell Hill bookshop, and they kind of quiver when they saw me coming, because I'd have said that I've read everything that they've got in. So I was always reading. I was obsessed with Jacqueline Wilson. I wrote a 60-page book based on Jacqueline Wilson with my own illustrations.
Brilliant.
Which I don't know where it is anymore. And then, when I was 10, I wrote entered a competition for Disney and won a director's chair, which I was very proud of.
Wow.
I think it was called The Green Stone of Jealousy. So, really on the nose at 10. And so I think I'd always been interested in stories and storytelling, but it kind of took me down the route of acting for a long time. All I ever wanted to be was an actress. I acted through school. I was kind of the drama nerd at school. I acted throughout university, and even after, I did quite a lot of kind of semi-professional am-drammy stuff. And then, life and work got in the way, and I thought, unless I was really committed to it and committed to being a kind of jobbing actor, this wasn't really for me. And so I put it aside, and then kind of just picked up writing again. There's kind of funny period in my life when my husband, boyfriend at the time, now husband, and best friend both simultaneously moved to the States, and I was kind of left bereft and thinking, what am I going to do with myself? So I picked up a writing course. It was just a kind of Tuesday evening. It's called the Original Creative Writing Course. Kind of couple of hours on a Tuesday night, and I started writing this novel, more sort of literary fiction based on my grandma's life. So she had this kind of mad life where she was born in Tel Aviv and moved to Cairo and came to London after the Suez Crisis. And so I started writing that, and then I got really frustrated with it and kind of stuck. And then I had this idea. I always get kind of very clear vision of the kind of opening scene of a book. And this is about a girl walking downstairs on her 18th birthday. And it's the start of the realization that she's not who she thinks she is or has been led to believe for the last 18 years. And so I started writing it. And then a few weeks later, I told my mum about it, because I tell my mum everything. I'm one of those people who calls my mum like 12 times a day. And she said that she'd seen this novel competition in the Daily Mail to win a prize. And I kind of entered it in a flyer. I remember that it was the night before the competition entry, and I actually couriered my entry in because I was so worried about meeting the deadline. And then, I'd entered a few things before. I'd entered the Bath Short Story Prize. I'd entered a couple of other, the stylist did a similar entry at the time, and just kind of forgot about it. And then I was still writing the novel. It was still kind of ingrained in me. And so I put this kind of literary fiction book aside and started writing this book. And then a few months later, I got a call from this man called Luigi. I had no idea who he was. I was in the middle of my working day. I thought he was kind of a plumber or something. And it turned out to be, well, you get,
not don't Mario, Luigi. Yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. I never thought about that before. Maybe that's why I thought he was a plumber. And he said, he was from LBA. So I had no idea what these initials stood for. And then he kind of told me that he was from Luigi Bonomi Associates, which was the literary agency that he was the head of, that I'd won this prize. It included the publishing deal with Penguin Random House in advance. And I remember so clearly I was about to go into a really boring Tuesday meeting, and I was kind of slinking down the wall. What? So it's quite an unusual route to publishing, because, I haven't sent out letters. I haven't done my research. Well, obviously I'd kind of done my research in part as part of the course I'd done. I kind of knew about cover letters and was getting ready to submit my book at a certain time, but I didn't have that kind of laboured entry. So in a way, I feel a bit of a kind of imposter syndrome that I'm even here. But in a way, it also feels like it's something that I was always meant to do. And I kind of feel like I'm now sitting in the right place, finally.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, Lizzy. Let's do just one thing. First of all, the greenstone of jealousy. If Disney Plus are listening, I'm sure the film and TV rights are still available. So
absolutely.
The thing of your boyfriend and his friend going off to America, and there is that. I think this is something that happens to a lot of people, particularly when they hit 30, and you're seeing films like Tick, Tick, Boom and stuff like that. People would get to a point in their life they think, I need to have done something by now.
Yeah.
I need to have. Was that kind of the impetus behind that? Was that kind of actually, life is rushing by. Let's get a move on and do what I really, really want to do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'd also kind of worn a lot of hats. So I'd done the acting. I'd also spent very tumultuous year and a half interning all over the film industry.
Right.
And I'd actually been writing a blog called Always an Intern, which wasn't an expose. I was very anonymous, but I kind of tried my hand at doing some writing. And actually I'd been playing around with writing kind of Devil Wears Prada type thing, and had just enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that having them both kind of move away gave me this kind of look at my life and thought, what am I doing? And what do I want to do? And so it it started from there.
And this thing of suddenly, the competition you're entering at this is fairy tale stuff. Entering at the last minute, putting it in, and then suddenly you got Luigi, who is, having worked in publishing, he's one of the biggest and best agents out there. It's like the angels of publishing have tapped you on the shoulder. But of course, he's dropping you a line. He's saying, "I'm from LBA." There's always in publishing. There's always an assumption that you know how it works, and authors often walk into publishing out of their depth, to paraphrase your novel. How bizarre a world was it? How much did you have to learn? Did anyone sort of show you the ropes and show you how it all worked?
I think a lot of it was learning on my feet. And this sounds really bizarre to other authors or to people who know more about the industry than I did, but I never really thought about the fact that I was writing a thriller. I was just writing a book. And so it was only when I was sort of met my editor for My Name is Anna that they kind of started saying, this is a commercial thriller book, and that I would have to, not that I would have to, but that it was an assumption that I would keep writing thrillers, and that's how it worked. And I remember going into her with a cover design of a idea of something that I really loved. And she said, well, that's not a commercial fiction cover. And I just had no idea that that's how it worked. I didn't know how much I would be involved. I didn't know that, a lot of friends who aren't in the industry at all say to me, do you get to pick the cover? So even a small point like that, I would have had no idea that it was kind of, I would be shown something. But nobody actually, there's just too much to unpack for somebody to actually sit down and say to you, well, this is how it works. So a lot of it is just me asking questions and finding out what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think this is one of publishing's problems. When I was at Hachette, they used to do sort of welcome packs for authors, which they did for a while, but they need constant updating. I think it sort of fell by the wayside. And I wish more publishers would do that. But suddenly, as I understand it, when you entered the competition, you wrote something like 15,000 words or something for the competition. So had you actually finished the book when Luigi took you on, or did you have to?
So I'd been writing it. I think. In fact, it was only 3 chapters I had to submit for the competition in a cover letter. But then I'd started writing it, and I think I'd written about 15 to 25,000 words by the time he got in contact with me. Right. And then, once they'd signed, I think I signed in the summer and I submitted in December. So it was a very quick kind of 6 months of just kind of plowing through. But then I had no idea, didn't even know how long a book was supposed to be. I had to see in my contract that it's 82,000 words, which, God, it's a lot of words, apparently.
It's a lot of words. What I love, though, is that obviously you've got a day job. You wrote a lot of that book, as I understand it, on your phone, on your commute. Tell us about that, finding the time in the day to do that.
Yeah, it's very different. And funnily enough, I've just finished writing my 3rd book, and I've ended up writing 3 books very differently. So the first book, I was working full-time, but I didn't have any children. And so in a way, although I was working full time, the rest of my time was my own. And then I wrote a lot of Out of Her Depth as a combination of maternity leave and pandemic, when I had a dependent child on me. And then with the 3rd book, I now work part-time, very clearly kind of Monday to Wednesday. Out of office goes off either on a Thursday morning or a Wednesday afternoon. And Thursday and Friday are now my writing days. So I've kind of tried all different methods of getting it done. And I think I'm one of those people who thrives on having too much to do. I know that sounds awful, but if I have nothing to do, then I will just do nothing. I'll just sit around and kind of stare listlessly into space. Whereas I know if I've got 20,000 things to do, then I have to make time for them. Yeah. And I think when I was working full time, like you said, I would write in the notes on my phone in my commute, and then in the evening I would chuck them onto a Word document and make them make sense. And similarly, on maternity leave, I was writing either with kind of a baby over my shoulder. I actually only took 3 months maternity leave as well, so this wasn't a whole year of maternity leave. Right. But kind of when my husband came home, I would throw the baby at him and then go upstairs and start writing. And whereas now writing on 2 days a week, it was actually 1 day a week until January, which half killed me trying to write a book on 1 day a week. But it means that you just have to kind of just put your blinkers on, and you can't kind of give time for anything else. And I think I have just learned to be very disciplined like that. Absolutely. When you were writing on your commute, what sort of word count were you getting? How long were you able to write for? I mean, my commute was Northern Line from Islington to Oxford Circus. So, maybe a couple of paragraphs, but you'd be surprised at how that adds up. Yep. Or how you work out things in your head, even if it's just turns of phrases and stuff, it just gets you there. I mean, I wasn't, I would have to still kind of edit it and kind of link scenes together, but I'm not one of those people who can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and bash out my 2,000 words before the day starts. But I do carry, especially because I work in this kind of disjointed way, I do carry my work with me all the time. And so when I have something, I have to put it down, and my phone is always with me. So it became a kind of useful adjunct to my life to have it there to get the work done.
Yeah. No, this is joy. This is music to our ears, because we have a thing called the 200 word a day challenge, where we say to people, it's Pomodoro technique kind of thing. You just get 15, 20 minutes. You can get 200 words a day down. Then it all starts to add up and all starts to, build up into something amazing. Speaking of something amazing, let's talk about the Richard and Judy book club pick, which for listeners outside the UK, this is possibly the best book promotion you can get as a fiction author today, because it's gets on TV, which very few books get on TV these days. It gets in the W.H. Smith bookstores, which is one of our biggest chains, and of course all the other chains and online retailers latch onto that as well. And it's essentially the pick of the crop for summer reading. Again, has anyone sat you down and told you what this means, what you've got? Because we've had authors who've been through this, and they, it's been transformative, and they've had bestsellers, and it's really boosted their career. Has anyone sat you down to tell you what this all means?
I mean, I know that Luigi has been an absolute champion of Out of Her Depth in particular from the start. I think he's got a real kind of searing insight into books and how they fit. And I know that he was championing Out of Her Depth as a Richard and Judy pick from the start. I know that he could just see it as being a really good fit for that audience and that particular book club. So he's kind of impressed upon me that this, even before we kind of had it confirmed, that it's, as you say, can be transformative, and that it's a really kind of prestigious thing to have, to be kind of be put forward for. I think actually, I think My Name Is Anna was longlisted, so I had a bit of a kind of insight into how it works. But it's one of those things that is a bit of I suppose like everything that's really happened to me, it's a bit of a pipe dream, and it's kind of combusted today because it's publication day as well, which I hadn't really expected. I mean, I've actually had the news for a really long time, just kind of been sitting there, I think maybe even since the beginning of the year. And I've just been sitting around, but it's been so imposed upon me that you cannot leak it beforehand. I mean, to the extent to which it could potentially be pulled.
Yes,
and so I've been, so I've been absolutely, I don't know, it's one of those things. It's like, can they hear my thoughts? Are they going to know if I write an email? Is somebody going to find the email? And, I'm writing like R and J, R ampersand J, like somebody might pick up on it. So, I mean, it's all kind of happening in real time because it's been announced today. So I'm kind of sitting back and, watching what's happening. I mean, the picks that I'm with are also just incredible books. I'm an absolute Taylor Jenkins Reid obsessive. I think she's incredible. So to even be like mentioned in the same sentence as her, I'm just like, oh, because her Malibu Rising is in the list as well, which I absolutely loved. So I still feel like such a newbie. I think also because there was a 3-year gap between My Name Is Anna and this. I'm not this seasoned author who's kind of done one a year and kind of in the flow of something. I'm making it up as I go along.
Excellent stuff. Excellent.
Watch this space.
We had Taylor on the podcast for Daisy Jones and the Six, and it was a fantastic episode. Listeners, I'll put a link in the show notes for that if you want to look that up. Do you have any expectations of what's ahead of you this summer? Do you know?
No, I think the kind of ARC reviews have been really positive, but I am just trying to stay really grounded because I think it's really easy to kind of believe your own hype, or to kind of be aware, very self-aware, because you're in this, it's the kind of availability heuristics of kind of, I'm getting lots of tweets, so I'm suddenly thinking, oh, lots of people reading it, but I'm also very aware of the fact that publishing is such a huge industry, and I don't really know what to expect. And so I'm not expecting anything. I'm incredibly ambitious. I'm not going to lie and kind of be self-effacing and say I'm not. I'm incredibly ambitious. I'm always looking to kind of top whatever I've done next. I have these conversations with Luigi all the time where I'm like, I just want to shoot for the moon with everything that I do. So, God, I would absolutely, it would be a dream to be a bestseller, but I'm also very aware that there is so much more that goes on in publishing that I don't know and understand, and that I can't hope for. So it's just a big fingers crossed thing.
It's very refreshing to hear that, particularly from a British author. We're so modest and self-effacing.
Yeah.
So share your secret with us, just between us, Lizzy, and our listeners. What's the dream? What's the ultimate dream? What would you project it out there? What would you like to see? And we won't hold you to it because we know so much of this is out of our hands. But in a year's time, where would you like to be?
I think being able to say, Sunday Times best-selling author, as having that as an epithet kind of forevermore would be the absolute kind of highfalutin goal. I'd love to get my next book is coming out next year. Then I'm out of contract. So I get a lot of it's like small goals. So, I'd love to get the next book under contract. I think anything and everything. I'd love to be, there are so many UK thriller writers that I admire, people like Getha Lodge and Harriet Tice and every other name has gone out of my head, but there are some people because I'd love to be kind of part of their conversation. Yeah. Whereas at the moment I'm just, especially on Twitter, I'm like, hey guys, hi, do you know me? I've got a book coming out. So I'd love to be part of that. I actually, as mentioned, me not being self-effacing, I actually kind of marched into Waterstones this morning, and I live in Islington, as I said, so the local Upstreet one, and was like, got any copies? Can I sign some? And they put my one little copy in the window, and I was like, I'm in the window of Waterstones. So I'd love to kind of be on that level of people knowing who I am, I guess, to not beat around the bush. So yeah, everything bestseller would be great.
Brilliant. Well, we love to hear stuff like that, and let's get you back on in a year or so and see what's happened. I bet it's going to be amazing. So yeah, everything is in the right place. Well, look, Lizzy, I'm going to let you get on with your amazing day. It is publication day. I'm sure there's going to be huge celebrations. Have you got anything lined up? What have you been thinking about publication day for a while, and what you might do?
Yeah, well, the day itself, so I'm having a little launch party at Hush, which is one of the restaurants that I work with my brother on Tuesday. So that's a kind of chance to see faces and kind of toast. So I think that's kind of the big day. And today, as I said, I'm so all over the place today that I'm just kind of taking it all as it comes. And I was actually going to go for a really long run this morning. And then basically couldn't be bothered, and I have a cold, so it's very bad. It's very bad.
Fair enough.
But I'm afraid I'm just sitting on my phone seeing messages from people, and it's been really nice. It's just been really nice to soak it up. So I don't want to do anything too much because I feel like I just want to kind of sit and enjoy it. And I'm very, as I said before, doing 20,000 things at once. I don't often just kind of sit and enjoy things. I'm going to let it kind of wash over me.
Brilliant. Well, enjoy that. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the summer and the next year. And folks, Out of a Depth, well, it'll be everywhere anyway, but grab a copy, enjoy, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book, quitting the day job, becoming a best-selling author? Well, over 4 years, we've studied the advice of over 300 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 500 million books. And we are excited to announce the Bestseller Academy. If you're ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, and coaching, your bestseller dreams are now only a click away. To find out more and apply, visit bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. God, it's not often you get all that happening on one day, is it, Mark?
I know.
What a start to release day.
Yeah, I'm amazed you had time to speak to me, to be honest. I'm always grateful when authors, take the time to speak to us, but on publication day as well. And also the day that you get that big Richard and Judy announcement, and that thing of keeping it a secret. I mean, that's the real deal. I mean, we would, talking earlier about Dallas and his Thunderbirds I Go emails. When we had a Richard and Judy book, we all had to get our retailers to sign NDAs. We all had to keep stum about it. We had to make plans, without telling people what it was all about. It was, everything changed, and it is a big deal. It really is a big deal.
I found it really fascinating as well that Lizzy talked about one of her favourite authors, Taylor Jenkins Reid, who we've had on the podcast, as you mentioned. Of course. And I remember very, very clearly when we were interviewing, or around the time when we were doing the interview, I remember walking into Chapters, my local big bookstore, and picking up her book and seeing a sticker on the front of it that said Reese Witherspoon Book Club pick. Yeah. And so she, I think she had her big break, with and it's kind of interesting. We were talking about this before the show, weren't we? Like what is, for people in, outside of the UK who've maybe never even heard of of Richard and Judy, which was a TV show, wasn't it, between 2001 and 2009? I can't believe it finished that long ago. I thought it just finished the other day. Yeah, I know. But it was a very, very popular TV show, a bit like kind of the equivalent, I guess, of, it was a married couple equivalent of Oprah, wasn't it, Richard and Judy? And this kind of like people you'd hang out with on a Sunday afternoon with a cup of tea and scones, and they were very lovely and friendly. And that was the book club in the UK. And now the equivalent kind of version of that, I guess the biggie is the Oprah Book Club. But now the kind of, the Reese Witherspoon Book Club's really taken a lot of steam. And that's like the cool book club to get under. But it really can change lives, can't it?
Yeah, because you've got people, you might have people who either devour books and are always looking for something new and want someone to recommend something, or you get those people who might only just read a book over the summer, maybe take 2 books on holiday, 2 or 3 books on holiday, and they want a guaranteed good read. And those book clubs are the arbiters of taste. They are the ones who say, look, this is a page turner. Lizzy's book is a page turner. You will not be disappointed. You're going to have a great time reading this book over the summer, on the beach, by the pool, wherever you're going, for holiday this year. And that's incredibly useful. That helps people make people's minds up. They kind of think, great, I'm going to pick that. Look at that cover. I love the colours, love the design, love the title, ticks every single box. So that's commercial fiction for you, folks, and that's not by accident. Someone like Luigi Bonomi, I mean, he's an agent who knows his stuff and he knows how to help craft a hit. So he will have seen something in Lizzy Barber thinking, about commercial fiction. And as she said, she didn't really know what commercial fiction was. She didn't think, she just thought of her books as books. But so he will say, okay, you have the kind of writing that will cross over into the kind of the Richard and Judy market, that will sell in supermarkets and in W.H. Smith's, the popular book chains in the UK, and will appeal to those readers, crossover, not only the ones who devour books, but also the ones who might only read 1 or 2 books a year. That is ticking so many boxes. And the cover art is done. When he will have sold the book in, I guarantee he would have said something along the lines of, yeah, this is someone you can sell to Richard and Judy. And when an editor hears that, when an acquisitions board hears that, they're thinking, great, okay, this is commercial, we're going to make money on this. So, it's there's a lot of luck. There's a lot of being in the right place at the right time. There's that thing of writing the right kind of genre. But the thing that Lizzy has, and she's not embarrassed to talk about, is she has that ambition. Yes. And that I found really impressive.
Yeah, it's really, well, it's all the way through, isn't it? Because I've always said this, if you as an author we talk about dream declarations on this show, don't we? I mean, it's one of the things that we've been really big on, forcing authors, the humblest of human beings often, forcing them to actually say out loud what they're really thinking inside. Because I know everyone's very humble, but inside, we know every author's got this little spark of a dream or a huge spark of a dream, and they're scared to share it many of the times. But Lizzy's right out there. She's like, right, I'm walking into Waterstones. I want that one copy of my book. I want it in the front window. And the thing is, when you're like that as an author, when you allow yourself to really be confident in what you're doing, it filters through. It starts with the author. It gives the confidence that an agent can promote you. It gives the agent the confidence to promote you into a publisher and say things like, this is definitely a Richard and Judy book club. And then the publishers pick it up and go, this is a Rich, and it goes all the way down the line. And it absolutely does not surprise me one bit that she has landed this massive, massive opportunity. And not only that, but I think you mentioned about her coming on next year. I think we will see Lizzy, she keeps up the writing that she's doing. it's not guaranteed, but she's got a much, much, much higher percentage chance of breaking out and becoming huge compared to someone who's, you know, hiding their light under a bushel, so to speak, and not really kind of pushing themselves on into the publishing world. And I think it's a really important lesson for a lot of people to learn here.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm in a lot of writers groups on Facebook, and people will ask questions about the industry, and you see so many questions prefaced with, I don't want to be seen as difficult. But, and, you know, and so often it's like you're not being difficult. You are simply asking almost for the basic minimum, you know, of something. You've got to be the squeaky wheel. You've got to, as you say, that if you go to an agent, say, I'm ambitious. I don't want just, you know, this, that, or the other. I want to be a bestseller, and I want this, and I want that. Now, to be fair, if you're writing in a niche, if you're writing, I don't know, you know, something that's really, really niche, some weird kink or something that isn't massively commercial, then that's a problem. You know, that's you're making life difficult. But if you're writing in a genre, crime or thriller or romance, or, you know, one of those genres that is constantly in the bestsellers and it's commercial and it's page turning, and you say to your agent, I'm ambitious, I want the big time, then you're absolutely right. That feeds through to the agent, and it also feeds through, and I can tell you because I've been in those meetings, those launch meetings, where the editor says, look, this is an ambitious author. We paid a lot of money for this author. They want to be a Sunday Times bestseller. They want to be a Richard and Judy bestseller. We need to go out there. We need to have a Thunderbirds Our Go moment, you know?
Right.
And
everyone ups their game.
And we sit there as sales, marketing, and publicity. Yeah, we sit there and go, okay, we understand. This is the big time. This isn't someone who's going to grow. I mean, my books are growers, you know, and I've had that conversation. We knew my stuff is a little bit weird, and we need to find our readers, and we need to grow over a few books, you know. That's fair enough. And whereas if I was writing commercial thrillers or whatever, then I think I would have every right to say, no, this is mainstream. I want to see this in supermarkets and blah. So if you're writing in that genre, don't be coy. Make it very, very clear you've got that ambition.
Absolutely. I think it's super, super important. But it's very hard for people to kind of get in there. But we've talked about this before, haven't we? We coached this in the podcast. Is this, you have to try. In fact, I had this question the other day in the academy where somebody was saying, you know, I'm not confident about marketing, even marketing myself or as an author. What do I do? And my kind of answer was, don't think of it as marketing yourself. Be confident in what you've created. You're creating a book. You're creating something that is external to you. It's not like you're bigging yourself up. You're bigging up the thing that you've written, which is external to you. And you mentioned on a podcast, I always remember a few years ago, you said, you know, it's about selling the sizzle. It's about selling that if you're not excited about your book, if you can't sell your book to someone and get them excited to read it, then an agent's not going to do that on your behalf, because you've got to actually do it to the agent first. And the other thing to remember, and I'm going to say this out loud, at the end of the day, why does an agent take on an author? From a career perspective, their Grammy Award, their Oscar is discovering maybe a brilliant new author and bringing them up through the ranks and seeing them grow from this, you know, unknown to like maybe a Richard and Judy book club, you know, a winner, or a Pulitzer Prize winner, or a #1 bestseller on the New York Times, Sunday Times. That's their legacy. That's why they show up as. But ultimately, day to day, why do they take on an author? Because they need to pay their mortgage. Right? An agent takes a percentage of what you earn. So if you earn a lot of money, they get to pay their mortgage off quicker. And that's really great for them and for you. So, you know, you've got to promote the fact that, you know, and that's, I think, one of the things about commercial fiction is you've got to be confident that your book will potentially sell a lot of copies, because that's unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what side of the equation you're on, that's what makes the world tick in the kind of bestseller world.
Yes, I will often preface emails to my agents with, you know, how can we make more money out of this? You know, 'cause I'm very aware.
You're speaking the language, right?
Yeah, because that's what it's about. I mean, there's, you know, they love you, they believe in you, they want you to do well, they want you to have a certain kind of creative voice, but it is a business as well.
Yeah.
So never.
And I will say, though, that I've experienced this in the music industry as well. that point where money meets creativity is a really difficult place for the creatives as writers of whatever we do. The minute money meets creativity is where all the problems happen, because it's then, you're having to kind of like meet someone in the middle, or you're having to make commercial choices rather than artistic choices. And that is a never ending challenge, I think, for any writer. So, I want to recognize that as well. It's not easy. Absolutely.
No, absolutely. And we are by design shy and retiring, generally, authors, and we can be afraid to ask questions, which is why I think one of the big problems publishing has is it does assume authors know everything, or they've had some kind of boot camp where they've been told how, Lizzy said she didn't know how long a book was supposed to be.
Yeah, she didn't even know a book was a thriller. That's brilliant. Exactly. I love that. It's like, I didn't even know it was a thriller until someone actually told me.
Exactly, and why should she? Because there's no, unless you join the academy or join us on Patreon, and I'll be absolutely. If you have some kind of community, but no one tells you this stuff, and we have our publishing as its own weird language and jargon and everything. So someone needs to sit you down and explain that stuff to you.
There will be people listening to this podcast. Maybe you've discovered the bestseller express. Maybe you stumbled across us for the first ever time and think, "Oh, these blokes, what they were talking about." But what's really interesting is there'll be people listening to this very show that won't have understood some of, and I've written a note here specific to say it. There's this terminology, ARC copies. There are people who are saying, I don't know what an ARC, because I remember thinking, what's an ARC copy? I have no idea. So for people that don't know, an ARC copy is an advanced reader's copy. So Lizzy sent her book out to people to kind of read in advance and get feedback before, and often people do it before they submit to an agent. Sometimes they do it once they've gone through a few edits and they want to look at we did it to look through all like things to do with grammar, colloquialisms. We had a lot of those, didn't we? Because we were writing in LA, which is not something either of us were hugely familiar about. And just the general typos and things like that. So, but we always forget. I think it's very easy for us to forget that people are joining this incredible journey every single day. There's somebody today who's going to wake up and say, I might try writing a book today, right? They're at that very beginning of the journey. And then they've got that whole kind of like dark magic, that black art of like, what on earth's all this stuff that goes on? And so, it's very easy to forget. Especially as we've been doing this podcast for so many years now, like we've picked up a few things along the way. And you've been in publishing for how many years now, Mark? Are we up to 25?
Oh, no, I did 25. I mean, am I still in publishing? I suppose I am.
You are. You're absolutely in publishing. Yeah. Not in the same way that you were working for Orion, but you're very much involved.
We're rapidly approaching 30.
Goodness me. Isn't that crazy? Right.
I only meant to stay for Christmas.
Well, exactly, right? They wouldn't let you go. Here's a really interesting thing that I loved that Lizzy talked about. She said that she would always carry her work with her.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think, actually a really brilliant way to think as a writer, because our work is portable. There are many jobs, there are many hobbies that people have where they can only do it in one place. If you're a gardener, you can't carry your gardening with you on the train. If you're working, maybe you're working in a factory. I mean, that's where your work happens, in that location. But writers, and I always remember, writers telling us that even if you're not writing, you can still be thinking about your story. You can still be thinking about, a plot line or how to fix something. So we get to embrace writing, if we want, 24/7, and it can become a bit all-consuming when you really get into the thick of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and what I loved about Lizzy, she was very honest about how each book has been written very differently. So the first book, she's working full-time but doesn't have any kids. So she's doing that thing of, writing at the, burning the candle at both ends kind of thing. Second book, she's writing on maternity leave and in a pandemic. And then the third book, she's working part-time, but Thursday and Friday are the writing days. And that ability to adapt and change and figure that's, you know, that's terrific. And again, you know, this idea that there's only one way to write a book, or you have to do this or you have to do that. No, you adapt it to your own life, and I think every writer can relate to that.
Yeah, I loved actually how Lizzy talked about her writing days. I think this is a very, very important thing for people to take note of. If they're, like most people are, I think, you know, if they're writing alongside a part-time or a full-time job, you know, for many people, they don't have the luxury of waking up on a Monday morning and saying, oh, how, you know, what shall I do this week towards my book? You know, I've got all the week ahead of me.
Hello.
I know, right? But you know what?
I love it.
And that's what you've created though, Mark. You made the decision to do that, and you've created it. And I think that's fantastic. And it's inspirational for everyone else to look at as well. But for the people that are kind of still in that world of trying to maybe break into writing, or most people actually are desperately trying to find more time to write. This idea of batching writing, I mean, obviously a 200 word a day challenge is there for people. Everyone should do that regardless. I don't care if you're Michael Connolly or you're just starting today. 200 words a day, that should be, they're your stretches. You know, I get up every morning out of bed and I work out and stretch. Only for like 15, 20 minutes, but I do it every morning. I've done it for like 3 years and I've never felt better. And it helps you as you go out into the world. And if you check in with 200 words a day, that starts your thinking for the rest of the day. It's not that you're just writing 200 words. You're maybe then thinking about your book for the next 15 hours, either consciously or subconsciously. That's part of the magic. But for Lizzy, you know, she had this situation where she looked at her schedule and thought, when can I really do the work, like intensively? And creating these focused days is an absolute essential thing. We call it batching within coaching, but there's actually a lot of science behind this, that if you do a similar kind of task and you batch it together, you kind of get this momentum as you get into it. So they say things like, if you've got like 6 phone calls to make and 20 emails to reply to, batch the phone calls together and batch the emails together. If you kind of intersplice them, you end up doing it very ineffectively. Whereas if you do 6 phone calls in a row, by the time you get to the 3rd or 4th phone call, you're absolutely like in the flow and you're just crashing through it. And I think that's part of Lizzy's success, the fact that she's had these focused days that have become where the work's got done. And that's proof, you know, the fact that she's now got these 3 books.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good stuff. It's so nice to like I say, have an author who has a very clear idea of what she wants and how she's going to get it, and she's constantly working towards it. And I know a lot of us can feel very lost out there. We can feel directionless, a bit aimless, but so much of it is about you taking control of just how you write and what you want to do with that writing. And I know we feel, you know, we talk about gatekeepers, we talk about, you know, untangible things like word of mouth, and there's a certain amount of luck involved, but it does kind of start with you and what you want from it, and having a clear idea and not feeling embarrassed to say, I want to be a bestseller, or I want to have a TV show, or I want to, you know, have the best agent in the business, or anything like that, because you might not hit all of those, but it certainly gets you off in the right direction.
Oh, completely. How many times have we heard someone say, oh, I wrote to those 10 agents, and then I wrote that letter to that one agent who was the best of the best, and I just posted it, or I just emailed it. And then they got that agent, and then they always look at that moment and think, attributing all of their success to that risk that they took, you know, that stepping into that unknown, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I think it's incredible. Yeah. I also love the fact that Lizzy wrote a lot of her, you know, you talked about her writing on her phone, and it made me giggle actually whilst I was listening to it, because I think about all the debates people have online about what's the best writing software, you know, and we've obviously talked a lot about, you know, the benefits of Scrivener, but it makes me, I love the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, you can still just like whip your phone out and make some notes. I mean, that is so, how lucky are we as writers that we have the ability to do that? We don't need any special equipment. Don't need to set up a studio. You know, just get your phone out or a notepad and a pencil and you're off.
And, you know, we talked earlier, you know, that thing about I can carry my work with me. But she said, even if it's just turns of phrases, you know, she's on the tube for 20 minutes or whatever, even if it's just a turn of phrase, it's all about keeping that momentum going, keeping that story moving, rather than just letting it, you know, stagnate in the background. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. It's all good stuff.
And a big reminder for all the parents out there and carers and teachers, get kids into reading. Get kids into reading, take them down to the library. Okay, I've got to tell you about this, Mark. This is brilliant. This is total circle of life moment for me this morning as I dropped my youngest, who's just become a teenager, off at the bus stop. She said, Dad, can I borrow your library card? I said, have you not got your own? Yeah, I have. I don't know where it is. Okay. It expired when she became 13, so she can now get an adult library card. Right, so she's very excited. But she said these immortal words to me. She actually asked me the question, Dad, I want to read a Stephen King book.
The time has come.
It has. She said, can I read a Stephen King book, Dad? And at firstly, kudos to her for asking me, because most kids wouldn't ask their parents.
No.
They would just go and sneak a copy somewhere and hide it. But I remember when I was 13, that was the kind of around the age when I started to get curious about, maybe I was a late starter, but I remember reading Cujo. I went and stayed with my grandparents in Spain. I had a little by myself. We flew to Spain by myself on a. It was a year of like crazy inflation. Ooh, it's kind of a circle of life. And like our family couldn't afford a holiday, but they said, look, we'll get you a cheap flight. You go and stay with grandma and grandpa for a few weeks. And I remember bringing Cujo and reading Cujo in Spain and just getting lost in this, like, oh my gosh, this is really kind of adult stuff. So anyway, we had a discussion about it, Mark, because I don't have any of my Stephen King books anymore, apart from The Stand was the only one I kept for some reason.
Right.
But I came to an agreement with her that the book that I think she will be okay, and I hope I've not made the wrong decision here. I've said to her, right, don't start with something really like, I mean, Carrie's probably the best one for her right now because that's maybe relatable. Where her age is
a good choice.
But I said to her, my favourite Stephen King novel was Misery, and I think that's not too. I can't remember. Was that a really, really, really gory one? It's not as bad as some of his stuff, was it?
No. There's one incident involving a foot.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to give anything away if you've not read it or not seen the film. I remember that. It's different in the film, actually.
Yes, the film was brilliant as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So I'm gonna. Do you think that's a good starting point out of all the Stephen King books she could read? Yeah,
but I Carrie highly recommend.
Okay,
because that is especially for young woman. It's terrific.
The other one I thought of, you know what one of my other favourite books was? I don't know why I remember all this one. You remember the Richard Bachman books that he put out? There was a book called Thinner. Did you ever read Thinner, about a cherry pie and a curse? Something about that book.
Brilliant.
I absolutely loved it. But this is it. I'm going to be reliving all the Stephen King books again with my teenage daughter. How wonderful is that? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Crazy days. Brilliant. So, Mr. Stay, social media. What's going on this week on social media?
Okay, I'm just going to stick with one this week because this is the kind of thing that we started the Academy for. Okay, so this is Kate Baker, who's been mentioned a few times on the social media, and that's because, like Lizzie, she's ambitious. She wants to get her books out there. She wants her books to do well, and she put a long post on our Facebook group and on the Academy. And she said, it won't take a genius to work out that my recent mentions of emails from the Society of Authors and an independent publisher and the Book Guild that something was brewing. A couple of days ago, I signed a contract for a partnership project for my historical novel, Made of Steel, which they'll be publishing February 2023. Now, she says, before you all turn away horrified, now, the reason is the Book Guild and Troubadour and Matador, they're a hybrid publisher where essentially you're paying for the book to be published. And I know there are some people who will faint and mop their brow and wail and scream about this. You shouldn't pay to get published. But Kate's gone into this eyes open. She's got the Society of Authors involved to look at the contract and make sure it's all good, and she's gotten to make some changes as well. So she said, I'm going to give a brief explanation while attempting not to sound defensive. She said, the senior contracts editor at Society of Authors went through the contract with a Nick Combe, raised 15 points of clarification. Jeremy Thompson, the MD of Troubadour Book Group, happily replied and clarified those points within 24 hours. Because I'm going into this arrangement not expecting to make any money, it won't be a disappointment not to see my investment come back, worst case scenario. They're only taking the rights for 12 months and only the book rights. She's retaining all the other rights, audio, film, TV, blah, blah, blah. At the end of my the day my book won't change the world. Well, you don't know that, Kate. I simply want to have some fun with it, as someone wise told me not too long ago. She said, if I were to take up piano, I don't expect to play the Albert Hall immediately. I'd book lessons for months, maybe years, If I took up cycling, I'd buy all the lycra and silly shoes, meaning I'd fall off whenever I braked, and I'd have to take out a mortgage to buy a bike weighing less than a can of beans. My point is, I'm happy to put some money into the services Troubadour offer to help an author who wants to self-publish, doesn't yet know how, nor has the time this summer to start studying the how. When I submitted the novel at the end of April, they told me they saw commercial potential in it and offered to share those costs. So they're doing a proof edit, the cover, the AI sheet, the advanced information sheet, adding it to their quarterly magazine that goes out to booksellers. And she gets 40% of each book sold, which is actually a better deal than...
That's really good.
Yeah. And she says, which is better than a slap in the face with a wet fish, as my granny used to say. So Kate says, I'm defending my right to do this because I'm proud of what I've achieved in a few short years. Having been treading the path towards traditionally published for 4 years, this territory is new, terrifying, exhilarating. For this book, I'm happy to have my hand held. I'll be the bestseller experiment guinea pig who tries this method. Let's see what happens. And if it fails spectacularly, I can be a guest on a future episode and tell you I sold 9 copies and it was a waste of time. She says some nice words about us as well. But look, Kate, this is I said to Kate, you've gone in with your eyes open. You've done the right thing. You've got advice from us and Society of Authors. Made of Steel, which I've had the pleasure of reading and giving Kate feedback on, is an absolutely cracking read as well. So, Kate, congratulations. I think this is just massive. The first step on a much longer voyage. And, she's learning things. She's, like I say, she's ambitious. She wants to make a career of this. Congratulations.
That's brilliant, Kate. And there's only one way to truly learn and understand what it takes to get a book out there and be a published author, and that is to publish a book, right? And I think all kudos to you. And actually, when you think of every single author you talked earlier about, people shouldn't have to pay to publish their books. Well, probably 98% of the world's authors right now are doing exactly that when they publish their own book on Amazon. I mean, it's like you're paying for your own cover. You're paying, you're paying in time, you're spending time writing the book when you could be earning money on an hourly paid job. So everyone is in some ways investing. I like to think of it as investing. It's an investment for your future. And the thing is that, like you say, you never know. It's and Kate has got that kind of go get 'em kind of attitude, that Thunderbirds a go kind of attitude. Let's do this. Yeah, let's do it. And so every best success to you, Kate. We can't wait to hear about how this all goes. And thank you for sharing that with us as well.
Yes, thank you, Kate. And folks, if you want to get in touch with us on social media, we're on Facebook, Bestseller Experiment. Twitter and Instagram is @bestsellerxp. Drop us a line on email. We read all the emails. Go to bestsellerexperiment.com. There's a contact button there, and you can send us an email. And if you've been inspired by Lizzy or Kate or any of the authors that we've had on the nearly 400 episodes of the podcast so far, it's coming up soon, please spread the word. Tell your writing groups, tell your author friends, give us a rating on your podcast, catch a star rating, give us a nice review, subscribe. All of that stuff makes us more visible and it helps us get authors like you, get your voices out there.
Absolutely. And find out about every single episode we put out by subscribing to our newsletter, bestsellerexperiment.com. Click on the newsletter button in the navigation. We've got a book, Back to Reality, if you haven't read it. It's a good summer read. If you're in the Western Hemisphere, it's a really
Glastonbury weekend.
Glastonbury's this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, love it. Oh my gosh. Nostalgia sweeping in. Don't forget as well, folks, that if you would like to start a habit of a writing lifetime, then the 200wordchallenge.com is for you. It's our free program to help you develop the writing habit. And when you are ready, folks, take it that one step further. You've heard about Kate last week. We heard about authors that are getting 6-book deals that started in the Academy. This really does make a massive difference. Come and join the Academy community. Have Mark and I as your coaches twice a month. Drop in, do weekly writing surgeries. There's tons more. Over nearly 30 courses, I believe, there are now on about everything to do with craft, character, plotting, word count, goal setting. We could go on, but do go check it out. Pop over to academy.bestsellerexperiment.com. There's a few days left if you want to join us in July. End of June is the deadline for that. So, Mr. Stay, thank you so much for the episode. Congratulations on your new shiny book that we saw this morning. Thank you. And all the best for the launch. When's the launch happening again? Remind everyone.
7th of July. We're going to be
not far
at
off, is it?
No, it's not. 2 weeks today, as we're recording this. 7th of July. Keep an eye on my socials. I'm meeting someone on Friday who might be able to help me live stream it if you're overseas or can't make it on the night. And we're going to have a lot of fun. And it's just the beginning. There's a lot of fun stuff coming up this summer.
Where do people get info about the actual launch? Is that directly on your website?
Yeah, go to my socials. Go to richardwoodville.com or follow me on social.
And if you're on the Bestseller Experiment newsletter, we'll pop it in there as well to make sure that everyone gets it. So send me the details.
There's a link in the show notes as well. There's a link in the show notes. So
brilliant stuff. Excellent. Well, best of luck with all the preparation for that, Mark. It's always an exciting time in an author's life. Brilliant stuff. Well, listen, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Have an amazing writing week. Remember, think big, be ambitious, and your dreams and goals in writing can come true. So it's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And a goodbye from Mark 2. Tatty bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.